The opinions and views expressed in the following program are those of the speakers and the host, and do not necessarily reflect those of Yoakley Scott Corporation and your sports network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before, so can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? But can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look in my soul. I've been afraid I would follow the road. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
Man, I will tell you, after a couple of days being gone, that intro slaps still, as I've been listening to it about every day for 2 years. There are sometimes, some days when it's just still rocking. This is Anthony Hartwig, and this is a Monday episode of Running Point. We are in the month of June. Woo! I think for the first time since, first June episode of Running Point, which is crazy because we haven't been on the air and on this show since Wednesday. We had a lot of craziness go over the weekend. It was state championship weekend, whether we're talking about softball or track. We had state championship moments in both sides of those sports. And then we had, unfortunately, some baseball teams that fell just short of making it to state, a couple of them getting into the regional finals. We're going to have a lot to recap over that. Still going to have an interview today. I mean, we're going to try our best over the summer to have an interview every day. Obviously, with high school sports being over now officially for Ysn's coverage area, we're gonna be getting a little bit more creative with our guests a little bit, but we still have the goal to at least have one every day on the show. Today we're gonna have the last one from Canfield softball, someone who I got to talk to on Friday after their Thursday win, and it's Faith Morrell, and we'll go into the whole big reason why her interview was so necessary to get in the waning hours of the season on Friday, because she played hero in Canfield's state semifinal. Let's just rewind our brains a little bit to Thursday and talk about state semifinals for softball, state championships for softball, and this crazy weekend that we had at Firestone Stadium in Akron, historic Firestone Stadium, which I will always feel home in. Every time I go there, it's just like instant memories going back to the Akron Racers. It's my favorite place to be, and I am so happy that the OHSA is still running their state tournament through there. I don't think there's any other place that you could run it that would give it the same atmosphere and the same feel. The only other place that I think would hold the crowds that they get, maybe like if you went to Ohio State softball stadium for their college softball team, maybe. I haven't been to their – no, I have been to their stadium for fall ball. But that's probably – I mean, there's no other, like, softball stadium really in the state of Ohio. College campuses. But Ohio State is the only one that is Power 5 because Cincinnati doesn't have a softball team. And then you have, the MAC schools, Toledo, Akron, and obviously YSU. But I think, Ohio State would be the only big stadium in the state of Ohio to contend with Firestone. I'd be interested to look on the capacity of those two stadiums to see how they meet up. I know Firestone has to hold more because they have even the outfield bleachers that weren't being used but have capacity. Anyway, my brain's getting off track. Let's talk about these games on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Thursday, me and DJ went down to Firestone for 2 games, and man, it was a fun time. South Range played first. South Range getting to the state semifinal for the third time in 7 years, 2016, 2021, and now again in 2023. And one of the things I was saying in that broadcast is when programs keep knocking on the door like that, knocking on the door, keep kind of raising that standard, eventually they're going to break it down. I think South Range is actually a great example of that, because before 2016, you go back to 2010, they make the regionals for the first time since, I believe, 2001. So they make the regionals in 10. They get to the regional finals. They lose to Hillsdale. And then the next year they get to the regional semifinals. They lose to Champion, who goes on to win the state championship that year. They missed the regionals in 12 and 13, but they get back in 14 and 15. They're right there knocking. 16, they finally break the door down, get into state, go to the state championship game, lose to Wheelersburg, miss districts the next 2 years. Then they get back to regionals in 19. They lose to the eventual state champion and champion. 20 was out because of COVID. 21 they get back to state, but you can kind of get the drift of what I'm putting down here, where the program kept knocking, and they start to break down. You start to raise that level a little bit. Not a lot of programs just pick up one day and say, hey, we're going to be a state caliber team this year and just run the table and go there. Even Austintown Fitch, who we saw win a state championship this year, got to regionals last year as a very, very talented team with a lot of young talent, but they got to the doorstep first, and then they broke it down this year. They didn't get right to the state championship. You very rarely see teams just kind of, we're just going to have that awesome year that we haven't had in so long, and we haven't even been close to this spot, and then all of a sudden we're in a state championship game and we're winning it all. Very rarely does that happen. Even Talmadge, who won the D2 state championship, even though they hadn't been that spot in 9 years, their program has the rich tradition of getting to that spot. They have 8 state championships. They have very fundamentally sound, traditional, successful softball. Their county has 37 state championships combined in softball. So obviously, there's that standard of excellence there too. Talmadge did not just pick up one day and say, we're going to be a state championship softball team. So that's the fact. That's the first point I wanted to make, and just give South Range the props they deserve in their program and the way that they've been playing as a program for the last 13 years, consistently getting to regionals and consistently knocking on that door for a state championship. Unfortunately, spoiler alert, if you were kind of absent from Ysn's coverage all weekend and you woke up today and you wanted to kind of catch up on what happened, unfortunately, South Range's run did end in the state semifinal. They lost to Wheelersburg. 6-1 was the final score. Wheelersburg went on to win the state championship against Indian Lake 6-0 on Saturday. So Wheelersburg, DJ described it as a buzzsaw in the Power Hour on Friday, and that's exactly what they are. I mean, there's no other way to put it. They were a buzzsaw. They won the state championship last year. They kind of ran their way through this season. They beat one of the top teams in the nation this year, 20-9 during their spring break trip to Kentucky. That team was Louisville Male, who in 2019, which is 4 years ago, that team was actually the AP national champions with a 39-0 season, and they outscored their opponents something like ridiculous, like 335-4 or something. It was just, obviously they were really good, and they're still an awesome softball team. And Wheelersburg went down and just pounded the snot out of them, 20-9 in Kentucky. That's how good this offense was. So that's a caveat. I think that South Range actually played a very good game, minus like a couple of plays here and there. In a state championship, those small mistakes get magnified so big. But when you're looking at that score and you're watching that game, and I know it's 6-1, and usually in softball and baseball, if you're more than 4, you consider you got dominated, right? If you lose by more than a grand slam, then you pretty much, got dominated. That's kind of the standard. And South Range definitely, got beat up, but they out-hit Wheelersburg 7-6. Julie Stackerwitz only gave up 3 earned runs, so 3 out of the 6 runs were earned. South Range had their opportunities on offense. Timely hitting. Timely hitting is so important in this level of softball. When you're getting to state, you have to have timely hitting. It didn't happen. They had the bases loaded in the 6th inning, I know it was still a 6-0 game, but you get a 6-4 or a 6-3 deficit going into the seventh. You feel a lot more comfortable. You feel a lot more momentum. You feel a lot more energy because you realize, oh, it takes a couple of base runners and we can really be in business. So they just couldn't find that timely hit. They made a couple of miscues. I don't even want to say miscues. They technically went down as errors in the stat book because statistically they were errors, but they were high level plays that we've seen South Range make before, but they're still high level plays that just weren't made. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, it was a routine play. How'd you miss that? Which has happened in the state semifinals and state championships before. We see a lot of teams have that mental blocker where they make a really big mistake. That didn't happen for the South Range Airs. They were effort plays. They were plays that we're used to them making that are tough. And we're used to seeing South Range come away with those amazing plays on defense that just work out. And in the state semifinals, they were tough plays. They were probably plays that the South Range players would say they could have made, they should have made. But at the same time, you're not gonna rip them apart for not making that play that probably 3% of softball players can make. It's an elite play. They were both in the outfield. They were both just reads on balls that were tailing because of the wind and um, got by. It's a tough situation. Wheelersburg did hit a home run, but it was a solo shot, if I remember correctly. So, yeah, it's just little things like that. And South Range, I think, was a lot closer than 6-1, and I'm still very confident in saying that was the de facto state championship because I think either one of those two teams would have gone on to win in the state championship game. Indian Lake could not figure out Wheelersburg's pitching at all. I mean, South Range only scored 1 run, but they did have 7 hits, so they were kind of seeing the ball pretty well. They didn't strike out too much either, so they were seeing it. They just couldn't get that timely hit, like I said before. Indian Lake was another story. If you watch that game, they were handcuffed. They couldn't figure out the pitching for Wheelersburg. So I think South Range, if they would have won that game against Wheelersburg, they probably win a state championship. And obviously Wheelersburg won one without incident. So that was a tough one to swallow for sure. South Range had won both their state semifinals that they'd been a part of before that, so we were kind of used to South Range making their way into the state championship, trying to find a way to win it this time. But this year, the way the brackets lined up, it was as Wheelersburg first, and it was a good softball game. I thought it was pretty clean, and Wheelersburg just came away with a 6-1 win. We go on to the next game though, which was a absolute gem if you like pitchers duels, that's for sure. Through I think like 5, me and DJ were on a break. We looked at each other and said, "This could be a game where both pitchers throw a no-hitter and someone loses because of an error or a walk or something like that gets a run in because that's the way these two teams were pitching." And through 5, both pitchers had a no-hitter going. And then Canfield kind of got a little bit of a crack on the armor, a double to left center field, and then mover over, and then the throw that went, the back throw to pick off the third went through third baseman into the outfield, and all of a sudden Canfield is down 1-0 against Steubenville, and you're thinking, the way these two teams are pitching, can you get one run? And Canfield didn't have a hit through 6 innings, so we were sitting there. The tension was rising, the stress level was going, but Canfield had the top of their order due up in the 7th, and that top of the order is very dangerous because it has speed, and then a little bit of power. So you're going to that inning saying you only need 1 run, get somebody on. You can get them over pretty easily. They steal bases really well. Just get somebody on. That's what you need to do. Just get somebody on. Treveri rockets one for the first out. It's a hard hit ball just right to the defense. That was Treveri's, unfortunately, her story all weekend. She had a bunch of hard hit balls that just could not find gaps in the defense. So she gets out. There's 1 out. Panunzio comes up, and she hits a ball that just kind of floats right over the head of the pitcher between her and the second baseman. It's one of those ones that you just go, man, you can't put it in a better spot. You couldn't have walked over there and dropped it in a better spot to drop. Obviously, I think they were playing a little bit deeper than I would have against someone who has already shown off a lot of speed. The scouting report says Panunzio is the team leader in stolen bases, so obviously she's probably going to put the ball in the ground a little bit more than in the air. So maybe if you're nitpicking the Steubenville defense, you say that the second baseman is playing a little bit deep, but that's like splitting hairs there. It drops between them. Panunzio gets on, and then Haley Freedy comes up and hits the first quality hit single that Canfield got all day, where the ball was hit hard and finally found a hole through the 5-6 hole into left field. And then you have first and second with one out, and you're thinking, okay, there's speed on the base pass. Here we go. Panunzio and Freedy have a double steal. Nothing they could do about it. Second and third with one out. And then here comes Faith Morrell. And this is why we had the interview with her, which we'll play after I go through this story, and then we'll come back and talk some more. Because I want to set up Faith Morrell's interview. So Faith Morrell comes up. She is the cleanup hitter. She's one of the power bats in the lineup. Has a bunch of doubles. She had I think 13 or 14 RBIs coming into that day. So she steps up to the plate with runners on second and third and one out. And this is how she says it. You'll hear it in the interview. She comes up and she gets the signal from Coach Curdan to bunt. And she calls timeout, right? She's like, hey, timeout. I want to make sure I got that right. Because what she told me on Friday is that she had never been asked to bunt this season. This was her first bunt laid down in the high school season. Had done it plenty of times in travel, knows how to do it, practices it, but in game situations this year hasn't been asked to bunt yet. So she wanted to make super sure this is what Coach Kernan wanted. So she calls the timeout. They have a little talk. She asks him, did you really call this? Is this what you want me to do in this situation? He says, yes, absolutely. And for someone that has not bunted all year, Faith Morrell lays down the absolute perfect bunt that you could ever put down. It goes just barely down the first baseline, it was straddling the first baseline. If someone got on their stomach and blew, that was an MLB play, right, where the guy gets down on the ground and starts blowing it foul. I feel like if one of the Steubenville players did that, it might have rolled foul. It was that close. It was down the line, down the first baseline, but it stays fair. You could argue that if the Steubenville player would have waited, maybe it would have rolled foul, but with that situation, you don't even want to take that chance. So they grab it, fair territory. They try to get that out at home. No go. Freedy scores. Game over. Oh my gosh, everyone's ecstatic. And Faith Morrell played the hero in the most unlikely way. You don't normally ask your cleanup hitter to have a suicide squeeze, but Canfield pulls it out in that miraculous way. Faith gets able to put the cape on, wear the cape. It fits her well. And how about that? A team that had been talking about Faith all week in our interviews with them at Coco's Pizza, they get Faith quite literally to come through in the clutch for the state semifinal win to push them into the state championship. It was a great moment. Faith is a great player, a junior that's going to be going into her senior year next year. I had a chance to sit down with her on Friday after that state semifinal win to talk to her about that play, that situation, and her career and what the future might hold for her next year as a senior when she's going to be asked to be one of the leaders of this team. So here is Faith Morrell. When we come back, we'll talk more about what happened this weekend on Ysn's Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet. Anthony Harmig here with another Canfield softball player profile. I am joined by Faith Morrell. Faith, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
All right, we have to talk about yesterday, the state semifinal game. Canfield with the walk-off victory 2-1. You're the one that puts on the cape this time and gets in the game-winning run with a really just awesome suicide squeeze bunt that goes right down the first baseline and scores your teammate Haley Freedy for the win. Faith, let's talk about this game before we get into your career and some of the things about you. But you go into the state semifinal game, I think everyone knew it was going to be a pitcher's duel, but you're sitting there as an offense through 6 innings still looking for your first hit. What did it feel like going into that final inning knowing that you still just needed one run and to at least tie and keep that going?
It was definitely nerve-wracking at first, but I knew we could do it because we're a team. We're not going to give up. That's just how I feel like most Canfield sports are run. We're just taught to never give up, and if any team was going to do it, it was going to be us.
How much energy did it give the dugout and your team to see that first hit come up and, Gianna Panunzio hits a little blooper right over the circle in the pitcher's circle. And then you get a base runner. It had to feel good for this team in the dugout to just get something on board.
It felt great. I mean, it started us off. We just gained so much confidence after G hit that ball over the pitcher's head.
All right, so here you come up. You already have tied the game. Haley Freedy's on third. You know what kind of speed she has. First question is was that a called bunt, or is that something that you saw from the defense that you did yourself?
Well, I called timeout to make sure he wanted me to bunt because I haven't bunted the whole season. So I called timeout and I went up to him and I asked him, I was like, do you want me to bunt in this situation? And he said yes. So I knew I had to get that bunt down.
So he gave you the signal and you were like, wait a minute, are you sure?
Yeah.
So what was going through your head? Okay, so you confirmed it with Coach Kernan. All right, I have to bunt. I haven't done it yet this season, but if I do it right, we're going to win. What kind of things were going through your head?
I was definitely nervous, but I knew I could do it. I mean, we do it in practice. I've done it my whole life throughout travel, throughout high school, but I feel like this bunt was like the most important bunt I had in my whole life. I had to get it down.
With all that going on, I mean, you executed it perfectly. It didn't affect your mental ability to do it. When you got it down and you kind of realized that it was going to score, what were the emotions like for you?
Well, I didn't know if it was rolling foul or anything. I was just running to first base, and then I saw Coach Barb start screaming, so I knew Haley scored, and I just had a bunch of emotions. I was happy, but I was also sad, and I was just so excited for the team.
Yeah, that must have been weird for you because you couldn't look back to see
Mm-mm.
if she scored. You had to just run to first, and then you had
Yep.
to just rely on the sound of the crowd and, like you said, the sound of your coach going nuts. That was, I mean, it just barely stayed
Yeah.
fair. When you watch it, I'm sure you've seen some video highlights, and I'm sure you've seen the celebration that your teammates were able to have at home plate. I mean, what kind of moment was that like for you?
I was nervous. Once I saw the video, I was like a split second, and that she would have grabbed it up a second later, it would have been foul, and I would have had to swing because there's 2 strikes. But I guess it's just luck. Like it just landed in the perfect spot, and she picked it up at the right time.
Some call it luck. Some call it a little bit of faith. When you think about, let's go over your whole season as a whole. This Cardinals team has fought so hard to get to this point. What were some of the things that you did, at the start of the season and in the off season and the long winter to kind of get ready for this year and try to make the most of the next opportunity that you were going to have this year in this lineup?
In the off season, we started very early. We started October maybe, and we did like speed and agility, and we did yoga, and I feel like that kind of helped us as a team, like the camaraderie to build our team spirit and just like get closer as a team. And then once we were allowed to actually start like practicing and stuff, that's when we started working on like the skills, and we've been working hard ever since we started, and I think that's what's helped us the most.
You've done good enough this year to earn the spot in the lineup that is the cleanup spot in the 4-hole. What does it mean to you that your coaches trust you enough to put you in that position where you're in a lot of RBI opportunities and they trust you to get the big base hits that you need for a win?
It means a lot to me knowing that they trust me. I'm not a senior, I'm a junior, so just knowing they trust me to put me in that spot, that this is my first year on varsity, and that they're willing to put me in that spot and give our team a chance.
Even though there are 8 seniors on this team, you are not alone as a player that is on the first year varsity. Obviously, Leah Figueroa is a freshman, but there are even a couple of seniors that weren't, consistent starters on this lineup last year that have stepped into this opportunity. And all of you that are having your first year on the varsity field are having such a great season. What do you think you attribute that to? What made it so easy for you to just come right into this varsity level and have a lot of success?
First of all, I think having a new coach, it was kind of like a clean slate for everyone. And knowing that those girls on that field, I've played with them since I was little, and there was nothing nervous. I wasn't nervous at all to go play with them because I played with them my whole life.
One of the things we talked about on the broadcast with this team is the 8 seniors and how much you guys just wanted to make sure their season didn't end yesterday. What was that like? I mean, 8 seniors on the team, and you're all fighting for their careers to stay alive. And obviously, they contributed a lot to that too. But for the non-seniors, what was it like to give them one more practice and one more game?
Today felt really good at practice, knowing that we won that game for them. Like, we weren't going to let them go down. We want their last game to be memorable. And I feel like that the best way to do that is to be the state championship game.
I also want to ask about playing behind Melina Toth and watching her do what she's been doing in the circle this year. It's got to be such a fun experience when she's having success like she is. To know as an offense, you don't have to, go out and put up 9-10 runs. I mean, you can go and you can put up a solid 3 or 4 and know that we're doing the job with Melina Toth in the circle.
Melina is she's a great person. She's not just a good softball player. She's humble. She's a great person. She's fun to be around. And I think her just being the best pitcher that personally I've seen, that it's just like I feel comfortable in the field knowing that she kind of leads the team.
Do you ever get to go up against her in practice? Do you ever get any live pitching from Melina Toth?
Sometimes in practice. I haven't seen her much. When we were younger, she played on opposite travel teams as I did. So when we were younger, I definitely faced her a couple times.
Well, maybe not the most experience against her, but I still think you can answer it from a hitter's perspective. What do you think it is about her pitching that makes her so hard to hit?
She has a lot of movement, and she's very confident. She doesn't get down on herself. Like, she walks about her. It doesn't matter to her. She's just going to go up, do her best next time.
All right, we hear this dugout. We hear all the noises you guys make and how loud you guys get. Take us inside the dugout. What kind of personality, how would you describe the personality of this Canfield softball team?
We can get rowdy, very rowdy, especially people in the dugout. We like to cheer and scream for our teammates. We like to do our 12U cheers still.
What's your favorite cheer?
I don't know. I like them all. Probably I like G's, the hit it. Oh my God, what is it? I forget it.
Oh no. I'm sure you'll remember it as soon as you get in the dugout tomorrow. But what else I want to know is what I've heard from all your teammates is the dugout snack scene at Canfield softball is the best in the area. What is your favorite dugout snack?
The Rice Krispie treats Miss Kernan gets for us.
Now, are they like the packaged ones, or does she make them?
They're the packaged ones.
Still good. When you think of things that you like to do to kind of get your mental space right, softball is such a mental sport. What kind of things do you do to keep yourself in the game mentally throughout the ups and downs of softball?
Probably just relax. I like to breathe a lot and just relax and have the confidence in our team.
Every hitter has kind of routine, right? They have a routine that they like to go up there in the box and have the same thing happen every time. What's yours? What's your routine in the box?
I go in, I look at my bat, and then I look out on the field and just know I'm going to get a hit.
Do you ever talk to your bat? Do you ever tell it like, hey, we're going to get a hit now?
Not out loud. I do in my head.
When you think of this team and obviously the leadership that the seniors have had, what do you think are going to be some of the main lessons that you take away from them next year when you're a senior and you're asked to be much more of a leader in this group?
Just knowing that no matter what happens, you got to play for the team. We only have 2 seniors starting, so the rest of the seniors, I just know that they're not there for themselves. They're playing for the whole team. When
you look at what it's going to be like next year and the senior year, it also comes with trying to figure out your future, right? That's what junior year is all about, trying to get ready for senior year and trying to figure out what kind of things you want to do after high school. Have you put much thought into that? Have you kind of narrowed down maybe a list of career paths that you want to see yourself going into?
I want to be a child psychologist. I don't really know where I want to go to school yet, but I'm set on being a psychologist.
When someone is set like that, and it seems like it was something that you've been set on for a little bit, what made it so easy to kind of say this is what I want to be? Is it a life experience or someone that guided you towards that track? What is it about your life that makes you want to be a child psychologist?
I just want to be able to help like younger kids, because I know mental health is a big like thing right now, especially with COVID and with social media. I just want to be able to help kids.
Speaking of little kids, when you are as successful as you are in a state semifinal, I saw a lot of young girls rooting for Canfield there yesterday, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of young girls in the Canfield softball community, whether it be Little League or under, that are going to be watching on Saturday. What is it about, having little girls look up to you that is so special?
I just remember being that little and looking up to the high school girls. It doesn't seem real that like I've grown up that fast, but I used to be one of them, and knowing that how much that means for me, how much that used to mean for me to look up to them.
Do you have any players in your mind that you think of that you looked up to when you were little and you watched the high school team?
My neighbor used to play for the Canfield team. Her name is Kaylin, and I really looked up to her because we used to be friends. Like we used to play catch, and yeah.
You also brought up, wanting to be a strong, positive mindset in the mental health aspect. I'm sure through your career in softball, playing since a young age, you've had some forms of adversity to get you through the career, because softball is a sport where it's up and down. You're going to have to deal with failure. What do you think is your biggest, adversity that you've faced in your career, and how did you mentally get past it?
I'm honestly gonna say the biggest one was during travel season when I had to switch teams this year. It was really hard just playing with new girls that I really haven't played with, but I had to get through it because I knew that it was gonna help me get better, get to know new people.
How much has travel just in general helped you grow as a softball player?
I think it's really helped my confidence. I like relax during travel because and I get ready for the high school season because I just feel like high school is everything. Like getting to the state championship, it means a lot. So just getting through travel, I get to get better during travel season.
Faith, we can't let you go without asking about Coach Kernan. You brought him up earlier and how much of a clean slate having a new coach has brought this program. From your perspective, what has he brought to the team, and what kind of things do you think he's made such a big difference in from last year to this year?
He's very competitive and he makes us work hard for what we've earned. He doesn't ever give up on us, no matter like last night, set the bottom of the seventh inning. He never gave up. He was always with us, and he's just like helped build up all of our confidence.
What were some of your first impressions of Coach Kernan in the first maybe meetings or the first time meeting him? What were some of your first impressions?
I was scared at first because when he walked in, he was very serious, and I knew he would be a good coach, but I was definitely nervous because he was new, but he was ready to go.
What was there like a moment or an interaction with him that kind of won you over or kind of made you like realize that you didn't have to be nervous and he was the coach that you could trust and build that trust with?
Probably anytime during the off season, like he would still work hard with us, and I knew I could trust him because he was trying to help each girl get better.
All right, Faith. Before we let you go, though, I do want to give you the chance to thank your support system, all the people that are in your corner, anyone that you think deserves a shout out for you. I'm going to give you the time to do so.
I want to shout out my parents, my grandparents, and my siblings for coming to all my games. Coach Kernan, Coach Barb, Coach Beasy, Coach CJ, Coach Durkin, and Coach Maz. And I want to shout out my hitting coach, Coach Flickinger, and all my teammates.
How much credit did Coach Flickinger take for that bunt?
He didn't say anything.
Oh no.
He's not taking that credit.
All right, Faith, what a moment. Congratulations on that. Good luck tomorrow in the state championship. Thanks for coming on and talking with us for a little bit, and we look forward to talking to you real soon.
Thank you.
21 News delivers the news as it happens, using the latest technology from where it happens.
Live here outside the Mahoney County.
On air, online,
Wednesday afternoon weather update.
Very dangerous.
and on the 21 News social media platforms.
I'm on the road right now.
21 News, the Valley's only locally owned source for trusted news since 1953.
As fine as the eye can see, the finest hardwoods from the finest trees. Made for your home and within your means, Baird Brothers will help fulfill your dreams. Let life and light come shining through in quiet morns. And heavy traffic, too. Find your easy-to-afford fine hardwood floors and doors and more at BairdBrothers.com.
Every customer has a story, and at Greenwood Chevrolet, we are committed to making sure it ends with you in the right vehicle. I get to be part of somebody's adventure, whether it's buying a car for the first time, helping them get approved, or finding the perfect car for their budget. I'm proud that people trust me with their finances. They trust me to take care of them, and they trust me with their story. I'm Tracy, and I'm ready to go the extra mile for you, only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
Welcome back inside the Monday episode of Running Point on ysnlive.com. As always, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austin Town. I'm going to put their logo in the top right corner so you know where to go. If you are in the market of a new or used vehicle, head over to our friends at Greenwood Chevrolet in Austin Town. They go the extra mile for you. We try to do the same here on this show every single day. And we thank them for their constant support since day one of Running Point and their wonderful support of everything we do at YSN. If you want to sponsor YSN, it's a perfect time to do so. We are heading into our summer coverage, which means a whole lot of Class B baseball down at Scene Park, a whole lot of Little League baseball coming up, and a lot more fun stuff that we have planned for the summer. And then you can gear up into the start of the 2023-2024 I'm sorry, I just got distracted because I think we have an ice cream truck in our area, and that's not something that you hear a lot down here in Boardman. And I just got super distracted by the little bells of the ice cream truck that really threw me off. But as I was saying, there's no better time to sponsor on YSN than now. Geared up for the 2023-2024 school year, and obviously be a part of the great coverage that we'll have in the summer. We do not pack down and shut down during the summer. No way, shape, and form. So, with that being said, we just heard from Faith Morrell at the other end of the break. And what a interview that was to talk about that moment that she was able to have to walk off the state semifinal and put her team in the state championship game. That'll be a moment that they will never forget. She will never forget. I'm sure Faith Morrell will forever be in the lore of Canfield softball now. We're talking 20 years from now when people talk about great moments in Canfield athletics. Faith Morrell's squeeze bunt to walk off Canfield into the state championship game is going to be a part of it. Now, that was a good side of Canfield's weekend, but unfortunately for them, their run fell short to Talmadge on Saturday. 9-0, the Blue Devils came up and just won pretty handedly in that game. And a lot of people asked me, what happened? They were asking me all weekend, what happened? What do you think happened? You saw the game. No one expected Canfield to give up 9 runs. No one expected Talmadge to be able to do what they did to Canfield with the way that the Cardinals have been playing all year. And one of the things I tell them is, one, Softball, as I always say, is a fickle monster, and it can turn on you really, really quick, and little mistakes can turn into big ones. And sometimes, even though two teams are even, or even a team is better than one team, you see the other team come up every now and then with a big win. And that happened on Saturday. I do not think Talmadge is by any means 9 runs better than Canfield. I think on that day, they just were. One of the differences I saw in the game, if I had to pick kind of the things that Talmadge did right, the mid-game adjustments that they were able to make were really, really awesome. You look at the first time through the lineup, I think Melina Toth had 6 strikeouts and she was cruising, and Talmadge wasn't doing much of anything through the first time through the order. Second time through, especially that second half of the order, the bottom half of the order, their second at bats, they started to chip away. They started to put the ball in play, find some holes, and really put a lot of pressure on Canfield's defense and Melina Toth to come in the strike zone. They were not chasing, which I think is a big key. They weren't getting behind, and then if they were behind, they weren't chasing that strikeout pitch that Toth likes to use. They made Toth come into the strike zone with 2 strikes and say, hey, we're going to be able to put the ball in play if we're patient. And that's what they were. They scored 2 runs. It was 2-0 in the 5th, and there were 2 outs, 2 on. You felt like this was a moment where Canfield could shut it down and try to get some offensive momentum and still have energy in the game. And really, the straw that broke the back was a hard hit ball to the left side down the line with 2. I believe there were two strikes as well. And it's a hard hit ball down the line. Haley Freedy gives everything she has to try to get the ball, but she misses it. She dives, she misses it. It goes all the way past her to the wall. And when you dive at the line, you're taking a big risk. You're either going to catch it and have that awesome moment and give your team a lot of energy heading into the dugout, which would have done that. And we've seen Haley Freedy make catches like that before, so there's no reason to think why she couldn't have made that catch then. But the risk you take, obviously, is if you dive down the line and you don't catch it, there's no one really there to cover you. And that's what happened. It went to the line. Obviously, the center fielder then had to try to run it down the corner. And by then, the speedy left-handed hitter for the Blue Devils made it all the way around the home. A 3-run inside the park home run with 2 outs in the 4th made it 5-0, and that just kind of felt like the nail in the coffin. Talmadge came up the next inning and added 4 more to make it 9-0. It was just the momentum just completely swung right with that play. And you could tell the body language was completely different. I just felt like after that move, the game was over at that point, 5-0, even though Talmadge came back and made it eventually 9-0. The sad thing is for Canfield that innings 1, 2, and 3, and then innings 6 and 7 were clean. No runs scored. It was just a clean pitch. And then there's 2 innings where they were both crooked numbers that really spelled doom. And if you give up crooked numbers in a state championship, you're going to have a really hard time winning, because obviously the other pitcher is going to be really good too. Talmadge pitcher was not a strikeout pitcher. Did not strike out a lot of Canfield hitters. I think they only struck out once or twice. They were putting the ball in play, but they weren't getting that solid contact. I think the ball was moving pretty well. They weren't able to barrel anything up. Maybe you could argue that pitch selection wasn't great. On Canfield's side, they weren't able to swing at their pitches that they wanted to barrel up. And then when they did, really good plays on defense from Talmadge. Canfield couldn't seem to find the holes when they really needed to. They had a couple opportunities early that, you come up with runners in scoring position in the first 2 innings, albeit with 2 outs, but you just need that timely hit. I talked about it with South Range. When you put opportunities on play in the state championship game, you got to come away with them. And the first 2 innings, I believe Canfield had runners in scoring position with 2 outs, and obviously you need a big hit. You need a big hit in that time, and it didn't happen for Canfield. So they lose to Talmadge 9-0. It was just one of those. It sucked. There's no other way to put it. You hate to see a team get that far, and then have a game go that way, where I know they probably feel like they could have done a lot better. But it's just one of those things. It's softball. It teaches you failure. And you have to bounce back from it. Canfield's going to be returning a ton of players, including Melina Toth, next year in the circle. When you have her in the circle, you have a good chance. You have a really good chance, and she will be hungrier than most to kind of get back to that stage and have a better performance the next time around. So watch out for Canfield next year. I still think D2 is an open door because of the teams that have left D2 for D3 or D1. So I still think D2 is a pretty wide open market for Canfield to make another run back with the talent that they're bringing back to the field. But they do say goodbye to 8 wonderful seniors and 8 wonderful leaders. So I think leadership is going to be something that they have to figure out next year. But a lot of those seniors were either bench players or role players. They weren't, not a ton of them were consistent starters in the lineup. So they're not missing a lot of bats that really help them. Gianna Panunzio, Haley Freedy will definitely hurt being lost for sure. Bella Kennedy being a 2 in the circle will hurt because she took 37 innings away from Melina Toth. That's an important 37 innings, and she did it well with an ERA just a tick above 1. So that's going to hurt too, because having 2 pitchers in this day and age goes a long way in high school sports, high school softball for sure. Canfield will be back, but then we go into the exciting part of the weekend in softball, which was Austintown Fitch. They went into the semifinals against Lebanon, a very good Lebanon team with ridiculous offensive stats. Aubrey Smith, their senior pitcher and leader in hitting, had 58 RBIs, which is just alien on 7 home runs. But Sydney Watts said, "Not today, my friend. I'm going to throw a no-hitter in the state semifinals." How'd she do it, you think? Well, I'll tell you what. Sydney was clocked at 70 miles per hour in this state semi, which is a personal record for her in game. I don't know if she had hit 70 in the, in practice or in her pitching bullpens before that. I know for a long time she was trying to get to 68, and she got to 68 in the offseason. But I am not sure if she had hit 70 before in her bullpens or in her pitching lessons or anything like that. But it was definitely one that she hadn't hit in the game before. And for those of you that don't follow softball closely or don't know, 70 miles per hour, if you are in that group, you are elite of the elite. You can watch the World Series, which is going on right now. Oklahoma is playing Stanford, and Stanford's going to have to win twice. There are maybe 4 pitchers left in the World Series right now that can throw 70 consistently and then get into the 70s. In the whole world of college softball, if you ask me to name everyone that I know that could probably hit 70, maybe 10, 15 would be generous. 20 would probably be generous. I mean, 70 is becoming more common than it was. There was the age where like Monica Abbott was the first to hit 70 and no one else was doing it. But it's still kind of unicornish in the sense that not a lot of people can do it. There aren't a lot of pitchers throwing 70. 70 miles per hour from 45 feet away is pretty much your 100 miles an hour from 60 feet away for baseball. You know, you're in the 65 to 68 mile an hour range. You're throwing, you can compare that to your mid 90s. Your elite, your professional baseball players for baseball, because college softball at the D1 level is pretty much your professional softball. I know there are professional softball leagues out there with Athletes Unlimited and the new one, WPL, that just had their first inaugural draft this year. But those leagues are getting their players straight from college, and college is the big stage. There's no bigger stage than the WCWS. So when you see those pitchers throwing 70, that's like your MLB pitchers throwing, the ones that throw high 90s into the hundreds. And when you see those pitchers in the D1 level that are, in the Power 5 throwing 68, 67, 65, those are your 95 mile an hour fastballs that you see in the MLB, but you don't really see outside of that too much. So that's kind of where you're at. Sydney Watts hit 70. I don't think she's consistently 70 yet. She'll work towards it, but you hit 70, you're good. These pitchers that I'm talking about in the WCWS are consistent at 70. But once you hit it, like once you prove to yourself you can hit 70, she has 2 more years to work. I wouldn't be surprised if in 2 years, as she's a senior, she's peaking at like 72, 73 and consistently throwing in the 70s. So That's scary for anyone that has to go up against her for the next 2 years. Hard enough hitting 68, but you crank that up to 70. You're in a lot of trouble. You're in a lot of trouble, and Lebanon was in a lot of trouble. I don't think too many players on that roster had seen 70 miles an hour before. So she throws a no, and Fitch moves on in the state semifinal 3-0 win over Lebanon. So then they play this team that is the definition of Cinderella. No one expected them to win their region. They had the number one team in the state in their region. They beat North Ridgeville 4-2, and they move on. They get out of their region, and then they run into the number 2 team in the state poll in the state semifinals in Watkins Memorial, 25-1 in the season, and Anthony Wayne beats them 2-1. So Anthony Wayne coming into this was super confident in themselves, riding high, riding that Cinderella slipper. And I think early, especially early, you really saw this. Their hitters were super confident. They were not intimidated at all by Sydney Watts. They had really good at bats. They were working her count. They were making her throw a lot of pitches. And they got to her a little bit. They got the hits. They got a run. They scored first. It was 1-0. Their pitchers were doing a pretty good job. In fact, the only real hard hit balls that Fitch got were the second or third time through the lineup. I mean, first time through, bunts were pretty much the only thing that Fitch was doing that was successful. But that was part of the game plan, obviously. Steve Ward wanted to bunt, wanted to use small ball, and it worked. It worked a lot. And if it wasn't for some early base running mistakes, Fitch would have absolutely taken control of that game a lot earlier than they did, because for whatever reason, Anthony Wayne struggled with defending the small ball. And even Sidney Watts was able to lay down a bunt pretty well. Later on in the game, I think the turning point absolutely was Ayla Ray's home run to right field. That kind of set the tone for the Fitch offense, and that's when they started to hit the ball hard off of 2 really, really good pitchers. I talked about Sidney Watts being, one of the elites that you're going to see. Both these pitchers are going to go into that level. So they are throwing 65 to 67. They had that velocity going. Kate Myers is going to Michigan as a junior, so she's going to Michigan in a couple years. And then the other pitcher they had, whose name escapes me, I apologize, she's going to Creighton. So you have a Creighton pitcher and a Michigan pitcher going back to back, and they're no joke at all. And Fitch was able to just make a couple of mistakes pay, not miss a lot. They had couple of hits to the gap, couple big doubles, a triple. Kylie Folkwine was a home run away from the cycle, which is always fun. And Fitch just kind of found ways to use a small ball at first and then find some power later on in the game. And they go on to win in the state championship there. Great job by Austintown Fitch. They are the first Mahoning County softball team to win a state championship since 2011. When Aaron Gabriel led Poland to the state championship game in 11 in her junior year. Got there again in 2012, lost in the state championship, I believe, to LaGrange Keystone. Don't quote me on it, but I think Keystone was the one that knocked Poland off on a rainy day in Akron in 2012. I know that's who they beat in 11, so that's the last time a Mahoning County softball team had won state. Last time that won in their conference in one state was in 2008. And then last time Fitch had won state was never. Not in the softball program anyway. And to go back to an OHSAA recognized team sport, you have to go all the way back to 1931 when basketball won their boys basketball tournament and their state championship way back in the day. That was before World War II. That was during the Great Depression. So that's a lot of history between then and now. Now, caveat, the bowling team, the girls bowling team, did win a state championship in 2003. I want to give them their flowers, but at that point, bowling was not an OHSA recognized sport. So it is a state championship. They absolutely did do Allisontown proud, and we definitely don't deny them of that at all. But it wasn't an OHSA state championship because it wasn't recognized by the OHSA governing body yet as a sport. It is now, thankfully, because we have a lot of good bowlers that put in a lot of good work around the area. But back then in 2003, it was not a sport yet. So this is the first team organized sport in Austintown Fitch to win a state championship since 1931. Congratulations, Austintown Fitch. What a great team you guys had this year. And it was fun to watch. Never lost, tied twice, and just managed really well. I think there were definitely a couple ups and downs, not too many because Fitch, let's just be honest, Fitch rolled in most of their games, but a couple of ups and downs, a couple of really close nail biters along the way, some doubters as they went through the state tournament. Hey, can Fitch do it? Can they punch their ticket? Hey, their offense is scuffling a little bit. I remember having that conversation during regionals. Woo, did they bounce out of that real quick and hear that and have that chip on their shoulder? So Fitch, once again, congratulations, 2023 softball state champions. That means after the end of the school year, YSN officially has 4 state champions to celebrate this year. We have 2 in football, Canfield football, South Range football. Congratulations to both those teams on the great memories that we had with them in the fall. Hoban basketball in the winter got the state championship there. And then we had Austintown Fitch softball get us the state title. So that's not a bad school year for YSN, calling 4 state championship moments. And the great thing that I love about what we do is you can find all of those moments on demand on our website to have them forever. So you can hear DJ's call in the Austintown, well, DJ and Ty. It was fun. Ty had the tag team out because he had to get to the Scrappers game. So you'll have about 5 innings of me and Ty, and then the last 2 innings of me and DJ. Let's see. Ty's call of the Hoban State Championship, and then Richie's call of the Canfield Football State Championship, and then DJ's call of the South Range Football State Championship. All of those are still on our website. You can still download them. Actually, you can do that for any of the games that we've ever put on for your teams. You'd have to scroll for a while to find some old ones. But, for example, if you want to see or relive the 2021 South Range State semifinal where they beat Johnstown to get into the state championship game, it can be found on our website. If you want to relive South Range's baseball state championship run, on our website. You want to relive Austintown Fitch's great football games that they had this year, where it seems like they come back in every single week, on our website. Want to relive any of the Austintown Fitch softball games this year? On our website. We can do that on demand. Scroll past the video window there, go into the on-demand section, find the game that you want, and simply just hit purchase for $2.99, and you will be able to download that game forever. It's a great way to keep those memories that we were able to build on YSN. We've had a ton of them. I remember we really got reminiscent during COVID because we were like, we have to put something on our network. Hey, let's go through some of the great games that we've been able to call in the past and replay them. And that's when we got really reminiscent of how many amazing memories that we had. And that was back in 2020. So we've had 3 more years of awesome memories, a lot of great games to put. Excuse me, that came out of nowhere, to put on our website. And once again, all of them can be found and downloaded and purchased to have forever for the low price of $2.99. Go over to your team's YSN page, which is simply YSN/insert team, whatever team you're looking for that's part of the YSN family. And then you'll pop up and you'll see the sponsors, scroll past the sponsors, scroll past the normal video window that you would use to play a live game, and you'll see the on-demand section there, and you can buy any of the past games that we've had from your teams dating back to whenever they signed on at YSN. For some teams, that's back to the beginning. For 4 teams, back to the beginning. Latonia, South Range, Salem, Crestview. You guys want to find old games from 2017 football? They're there. They're there. And then when I signed on, there was 8. So Gerard, Wellsville, East Liverpool. Who was the 4th that was new? That's going to kill me. Beaver Local, man. I think it was Beaver Local. I think Beaver Local, East Liverpool, Gerard, and Wellsville were the next 4. DJ would know, and he's going to smack me for not knowing confidently. I could have been right, so I couldn't know. But when I signed, there was 8, so those games, point and blank, a long way of saying that all the games that we've done are on ysnlive.com. Let's just end it there. We're gonna end the show because my babbling has actually taken us over the 1 hour mark. We'll have plenty of more state weekend recaps and things to talk about over the week. We still have to talk about a bunch of the track athletes that have had great weekends as well. We're going to try to get some of them on to talk about their state championship runs as well. So we'll have all that continuing throughout the week here on Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We'll see you all tomorrow from 1 to 2 on Running Point.